The 4 nutriments. General. 9 saying, good, friend, etc. And has arrived at this true Dhamma. Thus, having heard the Venerable Sariputta's exposition of the 4 truths under the heading of the wholesome and the unwholesome, the Bhikkhu delighted in his words with the statement, good, friend, and rejoiced with the mind that aroused that statement. What is meant is that they agreed by word and approved by mind. Now, because the elder was competent to give an exposition on the 4 truths in diverse ways as, the Blessed One, said, Bhikkhus, Sariputta is able to propound, to teach, the 4 noble truths in detail, M.141/3, 248. Or because he had said in that way too, being desirous of giving a further exposition, the Bhikkhus, being desirous of hearing the teaching of the 4 truths by another method, asked him a further question. By asking, but, friend, might there be another way? Would there be another case? They asked another question additional to that question asked and answered, already, by the Venerable Sariputta himself. Or what is meant is that they asked a question subsequent to the previous one. Then, answering them, the elder said, there might be, friends, and so on. 10 Herein, this is the elucidation of the terms that are not clear. Nutriment, ahara, is a condition, pakaya. For a condition nourishes its own fruit, therefore it is called nutriment. 21. 11 Of beings that already have come to be, buddhanam va satanam, etc., here come to be, Buddha, means come to birth, reborn. Seeking a new existence, samhavesanam, means those who seek, search for, existence, birth, production. Therein, among the 4 kinds of generation 22 beings born from eggs and from the womb are said to be seeking a new existence as long as they have not broken out of the eggshell or the placenta. When they have broken out of the eggshell or the placenta and emerged outside, they are said to have come to be. The moisture-born and the spontaneously born are said to be seeking a new existence at the first moment of consciousness. From the second moment of consciousness onwards they are said to have come to be. Or alternatively, come to be is born, reproduced. This is a term for those who have destroyed the cankers, arahants. Who are reckoned thus, they have come to be only, but they will not come to be again. Seeking a new existence means they seek a new existence. This is a term for worldlings and disciples in higher training who seek a new existence in the future too, because they have not abandoned the fetter of being. Thus by these 2 terms he includes all beings in all ways. For the maintenance, titiya, for the purpose of maintaining. For the support, anagahya for the purpose of supporting, for the purpose of helping. This is merely a difference of words, but the meaning of the 2 terms is one only. Or alternatively, for the maintenance is for the non-interruption of this or that being by means of the serial connection of arisen states. For the support is for the arising of unarisen states. And both these expressions should be regarded as applicable in both cases thus, for the maintenance and support of those that have come to be, and for the maintenance and support of those seeking a new existence. The 4 kinds of nutriment. Physical food as nutriment, lit. Food made into a ball, kabalinkaro aharo, is nutriment that can be swallowed after making it into a ball. This is a term for the nutritive essence which has as its basis boiled rice, junket, etc. 23. Gross or subtle, olarico va sukhumo va. It is gross because of the grossness of the basis, and subtle because of the subtlety of the basis. But because physical nutriment is included in subtle materiality, by way of its individual essence it is subtle only. 24. And also that grossness and subtlety should be understood relatively in respect of the basis. The nutriment of peacocks is subtle compared with the nutriment of crocodiles. Crocodiles, they say, swallow stones, and these dissolve on reaching their stomachs. Peacocks eat such animals as snakes, scorpions, etc. But the nutriment of hyenas is subtle compared with the nutriment of peacocks. These, they say, eat horns and bones thrown away 3 years before, and these become soft as yams as soon as they are moistened with their saliva. Also, the nutriment of elephants is subtle compared with the nutriment of hyenas. For these eat the branches of various trees, etc. The nutriment of the Gale buffalo, the antelope, the deer, etc., is subtler than the nutriment of elephants. These, they say, eat the sapless leaves of various kinds of trees, etc. The nutriment of cows is subtler than their nutriment, they eat fresh and dried grass. The nutriment of hares is subtler than their nutriment, that of birds is subtler than that of hares, that of barbarians is subtler than that of birds. That of village headmen is subtler than that of barbarians, that of kings and kings' ministers is subtler than village headmen's, that of a wheel-turning monarch is subtler than their nutriment. The earth deity's nutriment is subtler than that of a wheel-turning monarch. The nutriment of the deities of the four great kings is subtler than that of the earth deities. Thus nutriment should be elaborated up to that of the deities who wield power over others' creations 25, but saying, their nutriment is subtle, the end is reached. And here, in a basis that is gross, the nutritive essence is limited and weak, in one that is subtle, it is strong. Thus one who has drunk even a full bowl of gruel is soon hungry again and desirous of eating anything, but after drinking even a small amount of ghee, he will not want to eat for the whole day. Therein, it is the basis that dispels fatigue, but it is unable to preserve, but the nutritive essence preserves, though it cannot dispel fatigue. But when the two are combined they both dispel fatigue and preserve. Contact as the second, Fasodutiyo, the six-fold contact beginning with eye contact should be understood as the second of these four kinds of nutriment. And this is the method of the teaching itself, therefore it should not be inquired into here, saying for this reason it is the second, or the third. Mental volition, Manasansatana volition, Cetana, itself is stated. Consciousness, Vinanam, any kind of consciousness whatever. It may be asked here, if the meaning of condition is the meaning of nutriment, then, when other conditions also exist for beings, why are only these four stated? It should be said in reply, it is because they are the special conditions for personal continuity. For physical nutriment is the special condition for the material body of beings that eat physical nutriment. As regards the group of mental constituents, contact is the special condition for feeling, mental volition for consciousness, and consciousness for mentality materiality. As it is said, just as, Bhikkhu, this body has nutriment for its maintenance, is maintained in dependence on nutriment, and without nutriment is not maintained, S.46:2/v64. And likewise, with contact as condition, feeling, with formations as condition, consciousness, with consciousness as condition, mentality materiality, S.12:1/21, etc. What is this nutriment, and what does it nourish? Physical nutriment nourishes the materiality with nutritive essence as 8th 26. Contact as nutriment nourishes the three feelings. Mental volition as nutriment nourishes the three kinds of being, consciousness as nutriment nourishes the mentality materiality of rebirth linking. How? As soon as it is placed in the mouth, physical food as nutriment brings into being the 8 kinds of materiality, aforesaid. Then each lump of cooked rice ground by the teeth, on being swallowed, brings into being unit after unit of the 8 kinds of materiality. Thus it nourishes the materiality with nutritive essence as 8th. But with contact as nutriment, when contact productive of pleasant feeling arises it nourishes pleasant feeling, contact productive of painful feeling nourishes painful feeling. Contact productive of neither painful nor pleasant feeling nourishes neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Thus in all ways contact as nutriment nourishes the 3 kinds of feeling. In the case of mental volition as nutriment, Kama leading to sense sphere being nourishes sense sphere being. Kama leading to fine material and immaterial being nourishes its respective kind of being. Thus in all ways mental volition as nutriment nourishes the 3 kinds of being. But with consciousness as nutriment, it is said that it nourishes, by way of connascence condition, etc. the 3 immaterial aggregates associated with itself at the moment of rebirth linking and the 30 kinds of materiality that arise by way of triple continuity. Thus consciousness nourishes the mentality materiality of rebirth linking 27. And here, by the words mental volition as nutriment nourishes the 3 kinds of being, only the wholesome and unwholesome volition accompanied by taints is meant. By the words consciousness nourishes the mentality materiality of rebirth linking, only rebirth linking consciousness is meant. However, these are to be understood indiscriminately as nutriments as well because they nourish the states that are associated with them and originated by them. The four functions. As regards these four kinds of nutriment, physical food as nutriment accomplishes the function of nutriment by sustaining, contact by contacting, touching. Mental volition by accumulating, consciousness by cognizing. How? Physical food as nutriment, by sustaining, is for the maintenance of beings by maintaining the body. For this body, though generated by kama, is sustained by physical food and stands for 10 years or 100 years up to the end of the lifespan. Like what? Like a child which, though given birth by the mother, is nurtured by the milk, etc., given to him to drink by the wet nurse and thus lives long. Also, as a house is supported by a prop. This too has been said, untraced great king, just as, when a house is collapsing, they prop it up with other timber. And that house, being propped up by other timber, does not collapse, so too this body is supported by nutriment, persists in dependence upon nutriment. Thus physical food as nutriment accomplishes the function of nutriment by sustaining. Accomplishing it thus, physical food as nutriment becomes a condition for two material continuities, namely, for that originated by nutriment and that kamically acquired 28. It is a condition for the kama-born materiality by becoming its preserver. It is a condition for that originated by nutriment by becoming its producer. Then contact, by contacting the object which is the basis for pleasure, etc., is for the maintenance of beings by causing the occurrence of pleasant feeling, etc. Mental volition, accumulating by way of wholesome and unwholesome kama, is for the maintenance of beings because it provides the root of existence. Consciousness, by cognizing, is for the maintenance of beings by causing the occurrence of mentality materiality. The four dangers. Now, while these are accomplishing their function of nutriment by sustaining, etc., four dangers are to be seen: the danger of desire in the case of physical food as nutriment, the danger of approach in the case of contact, the danger of accumulating in the case of mental volition, and the danger of launching into a new existence here or there by way of taking rebirth linking in the case of consciousness. What are the reasons for this? Because, having aroused desire for physical food, beings face cold, etc., to undertake such work as checking, accounting, etc., and incur not a little suffering. And some who have gone forth in this dispensation seek nutriment through such improper means as the practice of medicine, etc., and they are to be censured here and now. And hereafter they become recluse ghosts in the manner described thus in the Lakhana Samayutta, and his outer robe was burning, blazing, etc. 29. For this reason, desire itself is to be understood as the danger in physical food as nutriment. Those who approach contact, who find gratification in contact, commit crimes in respect of others' guarded and protected belongings, such as their wives, etc. When the owners of the goods catch them with their belongings, they cut them into pieces or throw them onto a rubbish heap, or hand them over to the king. And then the king has various tortures inflicted upon them. And with the break-up of the body, after death, a bad destination is to be expected for them. Thus this entire danger that pertaining to the here and now and that pertaining to the afterlife has come about rooted in contact. For this reason, approach is to be understood as the danger in the case of the nutriment contact. The entire danger in the three realms of existence has come about by the accumulation of wholesome and unwholesome kama and is rooted in that accumulation. For this reason, accumulation is to be understood as the danger in the nutriment mental volition. And in whatever place rebirth linking consciousness launches, the new existence, in that same place it is reborn by seizing the rebirth linking mentality materiality. When it is produced, all dangers are produced, for they are all rooted in it. For this reason, launching is to be understood as the danger in the nutriment consciousness. The four similes. In regard to these nutriments with their dangers, for the sake of eliminating desire for the nutriment physical food. The fully enlightened one taught the simile of sun's flesh in the passage beginning thus: suppose, Bhikkhus, a couple, a man and his wife. For the sake of eliminating desire for the nutriment contact, he taught the simile of the flayed cow in the passage beginning thus: suppose, Bhikkhus, there was a flayed cow. For the sake of eliminating desire for the nutriment mental volition, he taught the simile of the charcoal pit in the passage beginning thus: suppose, Bhikkhus, there was a charcoal pit. And for the sake of eliminating desire for the nutriment consciousness, he taught the simile of the man struck with 300 spears in the passage beginning thus: suppose, Bhikkhus, there was a thief, a crook, 30. Therein, taking the essential meaning, there follows a brief interpretation of the meaning. A couple, it is said, a man and his wife, took their son and set out on a desert trail 100 yojanas long 31 with only limited provisions. When they had gone 50 yojanas their provisions ran out. Exhausted by hunger and thirst, they sat down in some scanty shade. Then the man said to his wife, "My dear, for 50 yojanas on all sides there is neither a village nor a town. Therefore, though a man can do many kinds of work, such as ploughing, guarding cattle, etc., it is not possible for me to do that. Come, kill me. Eat half of my flesh, and having made the other half into provisions for the journey, cross out of the desert together with our son." The wife said, "Dear husband, though a woman can do many kinds of work, such as spinning thread, etc., it is not possible for me to do that. Come, kill me. Eat half of my flesh, and having made the other half into provisions for the journey, cross out of the desert together with our son." Then the man said, "My dear, the death of the mother would mean the death of two, for a young boy cannot live without his mother. But if we both live, then we can beget another child again. Come now, let us kill our child, take his flesh, and cross out of this desert." Then the mother said to the son, "Dear, go to your father." He went, but the father said, "For the sake of supporting this child I incurred much suffering through such work as ploughing, guarding cattle, etc. I cannot kill the boy. You kill your son." Then he said, "Dear, go to your mother." But the mother said, "Longing for a son I incurred much suffering by observing the cow observance, the dog observance, praying to the gods, etc., not to speak of bearing him in my womb 32. It is not possible for me to kill him." Then she said, "Dear, go to your father." The boy died from going back and forth between the father and the mother. Seeing him dead, they wept, and having taken the flesh as described above, they departed. Because that flesh of their son was repulsive to them for 9 reasons, it was not eaten for enjoyment nor for intoxication nor for making the body strong and beautiful, but only for the purpose of crossing out of the desert. For what 9 reasons was it repulsive? Because it was the flesh of their own offspring, the flesh of a relative, the flesh of a son, the flesh of a dear son, the flesh of a youngster, raw flesh, not beef, unsalted, unspiced. Therefore the Bhikkhu who sees the nutriment physical food thus, as similar to sun's flesh, eliminates the desire for it 33. This, in the first place, is the interpretation of the meaning of the simile of sun's flesh. Then, as regards the simile of the flayed cow, if a cow were stripped of its skin from the neck to the hooves and then set free, whatever it would rest upon would become a basis of pain for it, since it would be bitten by the small creatures living there 34. So too, whatever physical basis or object contact stands upon as its support becomes a basis for the felt pain originating from that basis or object 35. Therefore a Bhikkhu who sees the nutriment contact thus, as similar to a flayed cow, eliminates the desire for it. This is the interpretation of the meaning of the simile of the flayed cow. Then, as regards the simile of the charcoal pit 36, the 3 realms of being are like a charcoal pit in the sense of a great burning heat, lit, a great fever. Like the 2 men who grab hold of a weaker man by both his arms and drag him towards it, is mental volition in the sense that it drags one towards the realms of being. Therefore a Bhikkhu who sees the nutriment mental volition thus, as similar to a charcoal pit, eliminates the desire for it. This is the interpretation of the meaning of the simile of the charcoal pit. Then, as regards the simile of the man struck with 300 spears 37, the 100 spears that strike the man in the morning make 100 wound openings in his body. And without remaining inside they pierce through and fall on the other side, and so with the other 200 spears as well. Thus his whole body is cut again and again by the spears which come without piercing him in a place where another has already struck. There is no measuring the pain arisen in him from even one of the wound openings, not to speak of 300 wound openings. Therein, the time of the generation of the rebirth linking consciousness is like the time of being struck by a spear. The production of the aggregates is like the production of the wound openings. The arising of the various kinds of suffering rooted in the round of existence, once the aggregates have been born, is like the arising of suffering on account of the wound openings. Another method of interpretation is as follows: the rebirth linking consciousness is like the thief. His mentality materiality conditioned by consciousness is like the wound openings created by the striking of the spears. The arising of the various kinds of suffering by way of the 32 types of torture and the 89 types of diseases in regard to consciousness. Conditioned by mentality materiality, this should be regarded as like the arising of severe pain for that man conditioned by the wound openings. Therefore a bhikkhu who sees the nutriment consciousness thus, as similar to one struck by 300 spears, eliminates the desire for it. This is the interpretation of the meaning of the simile of the man struck by 300 spears. Full understanding. Thus by eliminating desire in regard to these nutriments, he also fully understands these 4 nutriments. When these have been fully understood, the entire basis, for them, has also been fully understood. For this has been said by the Blessed One, s.12:63/299-100. Bhikkhus, when the nutriment physical food has been fully understood, lust for the 5 chords of sensual pleasure has been fully understood. When lust for the 5 chords of sensual pleasure has been fully understood, there exists no more any fetter bound by which the noble disciple might come back to this world. Bhikkhus, when the nutriment contact has been fully understood, the 3 feelings have been fully understood. When the 3 feelings have been fully understood, there is nothing further for the noble disciple to do, I say. Bhikkhus, when the nutriment mental volition has been fully understood, the 3 kinds of craving have been fully understood. When the 3 kinds of craving have been fully understood, there is nothing further for the noble disciple to do, I say. Bhikkhus, when the nutriment consciousness has been fully understood, mentality materiality has been fully understood. When mentality materiality has been fully understood, there is nothing further for the noble disciple to do, I say. The arising and cessation of nutriment. With the arising of craving there is the arising of nutriment, tanhasamudaya ahara samudayo, this is the meaning. With the arising of craving in the previous existence, the arising of the nutriments occurs at rebirth linking, in this existence. How? Because at the moment of rebirth linking there is the nutritive essence produced among the 30 types of materiality that have arisen by way of triple continuity 38. This is the karmically acquired physical food as nutriment produced by craving as its condition. But the contact and volition associated with the rebirth linking consciousness, and that mind or consciousness itself, these are the karmically acquired nutriments of contact. Mental volition and consciousness produced by craving as their condition. Thus, in the first place, the arising of the nutriments at rebirth linking should be understood as occurring with the arising of craving in the previous existence. But because the nutriments that are karmically acquired and those that are not karmically acquired have been discussed here combined, the principle of the arising of nutriment with the arising of craving should be understood to apply also to those that are not karmically acquired. For there is nutritive essence in the kinds of materiality that are aroused by the 8 types of consciousness accompanied by greed 39. This is the nutriment physical food that is not karmically acquired yet is produced by connascent craving as its condition. But the contact and volition associated with the consciousness accompanied by greed, and that mind or consciousness itself, these are the nutriments of contact. Mental volition and consciousness that are not karmically acquired yet are produced by craving as their condition. With the cessation of craving there is cessation of nutriment, tananiridha iharanairidho. By this there is set forth the cessation of nutriment by the cessation of the craving that had become the condition for both nutriment that is kamically acquired and that which is not kamically acquired. The rest should be understood by the method stated, but there is this difference. Here the four truths are stated directly, and as here, so in all the following sections. Therefore one who is unconfused in mind can deduce the truths throughout in what follows 40. 12 and in all the following sections the delimiting phrase in that way too, friends, etavata pi ko avozu, should be construed according to the principle that has been expounded. Here, in the first place, this is the interpretation of it, in the present context. In that way too, what is meant is, the attention and penetration stated by way of the teaching concerning nutriment. The same method throughout. The Four Noble Truths. 14 Now, delighting and rejoicing in the elder's words, after saying as before, good friend, the Bhikkhus asked a further question, and the elder answered them by another exposition. This method is found in all the following sections. Therefore, from here onwards, we shall explain the meaning only of the particular exposition he states in reply, without touching upon such words, as are already explained. 15 In the brief exposition of this teaching, in the phrase, he understands suffering, duksam pajanati, suffering is the truth of suffering. But regarding the detailed exposition, whatever needs to be said has all been said already in the Visuddhimagga in the description of the truths, 16,13-104. Aging and death. 21 From here onwards the teaching is given by way of dependent arising, paticca samuppada. 22 Therein, in the section on aging and death, firstly as to the term there, tasam, this should be understood as a collective designation in brief for the many kinds of beings. For if one were to state, the aging of individuals such as, the aging of Devadatta, the aging of Somadatta, etc., one would never come to an end of beings. But there is no being not included by this term there. 41 Therefore it was said above, this should be understood as a collective designation in brief for the many kinds of beings. In the various, tamhai this is a collective designation for the many, different, orders by way of destiny and birth. Orders of beings, sadhanaka an indication of the nature of what is designated by the collective designation. Aging, old age, jara-jiranata, etc., as regards these, aging is the description of the nature, old age is the description of the aspect. Brokenness, etc., are descriptions of the function with respect to the passage of time, and the last two terms are descriptions of the normal process. For this is indicated as to nature by this term aging, jara, hence this is a description of its nature. It is indicated as to aspect by this term old age, jiranata, hence this is a description of its aspect. Brokenness, kandiksa by this it is indicated as to the function of causing the broken state of teeth and nails on account of the passage of time. Grayness, paliksa by this it is indicated as to the function of causing the head hairs and body hairs to turn grey. Wrinkling, validicata by this it is indicated as to the wrinkled state of the skin after the withering of the flesh. Hence the three terms beginning with brokenness are descriptions of function with respect to the passage of time. By these evident aging is shown, which becomes evident by the showing of these alterations. For just as the course taken by water or wind or fire is evident from the damaged and broken state, or the burnt state, of the grass and trees, etc. And yet the course that has been taken is not the water, etc., itself, so too the course taken by aging is evident through brokenness of teeth, etc. And it is apprehended by opening the eyes, but the brokenness, etc., themselves are not aging, nor is aging cognizable by the eye. Decline of life, weakness of faculties, ayuno samhani indriyanam paripako. By these terms it is indicated by means of the normal process, known as the exhaustion of the lifespan and the weakening of the eye faculty, etc. That has become manifest with the passage of time. Hence these last two are to be understood as descriptions of its normal process. Therein, because the lifespan of one who has reached aging is dwindling. Aging is called decline of life as a metaphor, for the cause stated in terms of its effect. And because the eye faculty, etc., which at the time of youth were quite clear and could easily grasp even subtle objects, become deficient, obscure, unable to grasp even gross objects when one has reached old age. Therefore it is called weakness of faculties also as a metaphor, for the cause stated in terms of its effect. This aging, thus described, is all of two kinds, evident and concealed. Therein, the aging of material phenomena, shown by brokenness, etc., is called evident aging, Pakatājara. But in the case of immaterial phenomena, because their alteration in such a way is not visible, their aging is called concealed aging, Paticcanajara. Therein, the brokenness that is seen is simply color, vana, because of the ease of comprehending such things as the teeth, etc. Having seen this with the eye and reflected on it with the mind door, one knows aging thus: these teeth have been afflicted by aging. Just as one knows the existence of water below when one has noticed the heads of cows, etc., bound to the place where the water is located. Again, aging is twofold thus, as continuous and as discrete. Therein, continuous aging, Avasijara, is the aging of such things as gems, gold, silver, coral, the sun and moon, etc. It is so called because of the difficulty of perceiving in such things distinct changes in color, etc., at regular intervals. As we can in the case of living beings passing through the decade of childhood, etc., and in the case of vegetation, lit non-breathing things, such as flowers, fruits, buds, etc. The meaning is, aging that progresses without interval. Discrete aging, Savasijara, is the aging of the things other than those, i.e. of the aforesaid things, living beings and vegetation. It is so called because it is easy to perceive in them distinct changes in color, etc., at regular intervals. So it should be understood. Following this, in the definition of death, the term there, tasam, should be understood by the method stated above, in the definition of aging. Then, in the expression passing away, etc., passing, kuti, is said by way of what has the nature to pass away. This is a collective designation, applying to 1, 4, and 5 aggregate existence. Passing away, kavanata, is the indication of the characteristic by a word expressing the abstract state. Dissolution, beta, is an indication of the occurrence of the breaking up of the aggregates, at the time of passing. Disappearance, antaradhana, is an indication of the absence of any manner of persistence of the aggregates, at the time of passing, as they are broken like a broken pot. Dying, Maku Marana, death, which is called dying. By this he rejects the idea of death as complete annihilation. Completion of time, Kalakariya, time is the destroyer, and this, completion of time, is its activity. By this he explains death in conventional terminology. Now, to explain death in terms valid in the ultimate sense, he next says the dissolution of the aggregates, kandhanam bedu, etc. 42. For in the ultimate sense it is only the aggregates that break up, it is not any so-called being that dies. But when the aggregates are breaking up, convention says a being is dying, and when they have broken up, convention says, he is dead. Here the dissolution of the aggregates is said by way of 4 and 5 constituent being, the laying down of the body, Kalivarasa by way of 1 constituent being 43. Or alternatively, the dissolution of the aggregates is said by way of 4 constituent being. The laying down of the body should be understood by way of the other 2, i.e. 1 and 5 constituent being. Why? Because of the existence of the body, that is, the material body, in those 2 realms of being. Or else, because in the realm of the 4 great kings, etc., the aggregates simply break up and they do not lay anything down, the dissolution of the aggregates is said with reference to them. 44. The laying down of the body occurs among human beings, etc. And here, because it is the cause for the laying down of the body, death is called the laying down of the body. Thus the meaning should be understood. So this aging and this death are what is called aging and death. Itii and ca jara idem ca maranam idem vocatavosu jara maranam. This is spoken of as aging and death by combining the two into one. Birth. 26 in the section on birth, in regard to the phrase birth, their coming to birth, etc., birth, jatai, is in the sense of being born. This is stated with reference to those, conceived, with incomplete sense bases. Coming to birth, sanjati, is in the sense of the act of coming to birth. This is stated with reference to those, conceived, with already complete sense bases. Precipitation, or descent, okanti, is in the sense of being precipitated, descending. This is stated with reference to those born from the egg and from the womb, for they take rebirth linking as though descending and entering the egg shell or the placenta. Generation, abhinabhati, is in the sense of being generated. This is stated with reference to those born from moisture or those of spontaneous birth, for these are generated as soon as they become manifest. Now comes the exposition in terms valid in the ultimate sense. Manifestation, patubhava, is the arising of the aggregates. Kandhanam, is to be understood as the arising of one aggregate in the one constituent realm of being, of four aggregates in four constituent realms, and of five aggregates in five constituent realms. Obtaining, padalabha, is the manifestation in continuity. The bases, ayatananam, should be understood as comprising the sense bases arising, at conception, in this or that realm. For when the sense bases become manifest, then they are said to be obtained. This is called birth. Ayam vocatavosu jatai. By this phrase he comes to the conclusion on birth taught in both conventional terms and in the ultimate sense. With the arising of being, bhavasamadaya, but here one should understand kamically active being as the condition for birth. The rest by the method stated. Being. 30 in the section on being, sense sphere being, kamabhava, is kamically active being and resultant being. Therein, kamically active being, kamabhava, is kama itself that leads to sense sphere being. For that is called being as a designation of the cause in terms of its effect, because it is the cause for resultant being. As when it is said, the arising of Buddhas is bliss and the accumulation of evil is painful, DHP 194, 117. Resultant being, upapatibhava, is the group of kamically acquired aggregates produced by that kama. For that is called being because it exists there. Thus this kama and this result are both spoken of conjointly as sense sphere being. The same method applies to fine material being and immaterial being, ruparapabhava. With the arising of clinging, upadana samudaya, but here clinging is a condition for wholesome kamically active being only by way of decisive support. It is a condition for unwholesome kamically active being by way of both decisive support and connascence. 45 For all resultant being it is a condition only by way of decisive support. The rest by the method stated. Clinging. 34 in the section on clinging, in regard to the phrase clinging to sense pleasures, etc. Clinging to sense pleasures, kamupadana, is analyzed thus: by this one clings to the object of sensual pleasure, or this itself clings to it. Or alternatively, that is a sensual pleasure and it is clinging, thus it is clinging to sensual pleasure. It is firm grasping, dalhagahana, that is called clinging. For here the prefix upa has the sense of firmness. This is a designation for the lust for the five chords of sensual pleasure. This is the brief account here. The detailed account should be understood by the method stated thus: therein, what is clinging to sensual pleasures? The sensual desire in regard to sensual pleasures, etc. DHS section 1214. So too, that is a view and clinging, thus it is clinging to views, dithupadana. Or alternatively, it clings to a view, or by this they cling to a view. For the subsequent view clings to the previous view and thereby they cling to the view. As it is said, self and the world are eternal, only this is true, anything else is false, etc. M.102/2, 233. This is a designation for the whole field of wrong views except clinging to rituals and observances and clinging to a doctrine of self. 46. This is the brief account here. The detailed account should be understood by the method stated thus, therein, what is clinging to views. There is nothing given, etc. DHS section 1215. So too, by this they cling to rituals and observances, or this itself clings to them, or that is a ritual and observance and clinging, thus it is clinging to rituals and observances, Silabatupadana. For when one adheres to the idea that the cow ritual or cow observance brings purification, that itself is a clinging. 47. This is the brief account here. The detailed account should be understood by the method stated thus, therein, what is clinging to rituals and observances. The idea, of recluses and Brahmins outside here, i.e. outside the Buddha's dispensation, that purity, is achieved, by rules, etc. DHS section 1216. Now they assert in terms of this, thus it is a doctrine. By this they cling, thus it is clinging. What do they assert? Or what do they cling to? Self. The clinging to a doctrine about a self is the clinging to a doctrine of self, Atavatupadana. Or alternatively, by this a mere doctrine of self is clung to as self, thus it is clinging to a doctrine of self. This is a designation for personality view with its 20 cases. This is the brief account here. The detailed account should be understood by the method stated thus, therein, what is clinging to a doctrine of self. Here, the uninstructed worldling who has no regard for noble ones, etc. DHS section 1217. With the arising of craving, tanhasamudaya here, craving is a condition for clinging to sensual pleasures either by way of decisive support or by way of proximity. Contiguity, absence, disappearance, and repetition. 48. But for the rest, it is a condition, by way of connascence, etc. 2. The rest by the method stated. Craving. 38. In the section on craving, craving for forms, craving for mind objects, rupatanha, dhammatanha. These are names for the kinds of craving which occur in the course of a javana cognitive process, javanavathai, in the eye door, etc. Like a name derived from the father, such as Sethiputa, merchant's son, or Brahmanaputa, Brahman's son, their names are derived from the object, which is similar to the father as being the cause, hichu, of it only, not as is the case with eye contact. Which is like a name derived from the mother in that, the eye like the mother in relation to her son, is a cause by its nature as a physical support, nisayabhava. And here, craving for forms is craving that has forms as its object, craving in regard to forms. When this occurs by finding gratification in visible forms through its nature as sensual lust, it is craving for sensual pleasure, kamatanha. When it occurs by finding gratification in visible forms, thinking form is permanent, lasting, eternal, through its nature as lust accompanied by the eternalist view, then it is craving for being, bhavatanha. When it occurs by finding gratification in visible form, thinking form is annihilated, destroyed, and does not exist after death, through its nature as lust accompanied by the annihilationist view, then it is craving for non-being, vibhavatanha. Thus it is threefold. And as craving for form, so too craving for sound, etc., are each threefold too. Thus there are 18 modes of craving. These 18 in respect of internal visible form, etc., and in respect of external visible form, etc., come to 36. So 36 in the past, 36 in the future, and 36 at present make up 108. Or there are 18 based on internal form, etc., thus, on account of the internal there is, the notion, I am, there is, the notion, I am such, and so on. And there are 18 based on external form, etc., thus, on account of the external there is, the notion, I am, there is, the notion, I am such, and so on. Thus there are 36. So 36 in the past, 36 in the future, and 36 at present make up thus the 108 modes of craving, Tanhavacaratani, CA 4:199/2, 212. Again, when a classification is made, they reduce to only 6 classes of craving in terms of their objects, forms and the rest, and to only 3 types of craving for sensual pleasure and the rest. Thus, craving should be known by the wise through description, and when described in detail, it should be known, again, through classification of the detail. With the arising of feeling there is the arising of craving, Vedanasamudaya Tanhasamudayo, but here the word feeling is intended as resultant feeling. 49. How is that the condition for craving in respect of the 6 sense doors? Because of its ability to produce gratification. For it is through the gratification in pleasant feeling that beings become enamored of that feeling. And after arousing craving for feeling and being seized by lust for feeling, they long only for a desirable visible form in the eye door. And on getting it, they find gratification in it, and they honor painters, etc., who provide such objects. Likewise, they long only for a desirable sound, etc., in the ear door, etc. And on getting it, they find gratification in it, and they honor musicians, perfume makers, cooks, spinners, and the teachers of the various crafts. Like what? Like those who, being enamored of a child, out of love for the child honor the wet nurse and give her suitable ghee, milk, etc., to eat and drink. The rest by the method stated. Feeling. 42. In the section on feeling, classes of feeling, Vedanakaya, means groups of feeling. Feeling born of eye contact, feeling born of mind contact, Kakusamfasaja Vedana, Manasamfasaja. Vedana, because of what has come down in the Vibhanga. Thus, there is feeling born of eye contact that is wholesome, that is unwholesome. That is indeterminate, Vibhite 15, the wholesome, unwholesome and indeterminate feelings that occur in the eye door, etc., are named after the physical base, which is similar to a mother. Just as some are named after their mother, such as Sariputta, Lady Sari's son, Mantanaputta, Lady Mantani's son, etc. But the word meaning here is this: feeling born of eye contact, Kakusamfasaja Vedana, is feeling that is born with eye contact as the cause. The same method throughout. This, in the first place, is the all-inclusive explanation. But by way of resultant, in the eye door there are 2 eye consciousnesses, 2 mind elements, 3 mind consciousness elements. Feeling should be understood as what is associated with these 50. This method also applies in the ear door, etc. In the mind door, feeling is associated only with the mind consciousness elements. With the arising of contact, Phase Samudaya, but here the arising in the 5 doors of the feelings that have the 5 physical bases as their support, occurs with the arising of the connascent eye contact. For the rest, eye contact, etc., are conditions by way of decisive support. In the mind door, the arising of feelings, on the occasion of registration, and of the doorless feelings, on the occasions of rebirth linking. Life continuum and death occurs with the arising of the connascent mind contact. 51. The rest by the method stated. Contact. 46. In the section on contact, eye contact, Kakusamphasa, is contact in the eye. The same method throughout. Eye contact. Body contact, Kakusamphaso, Kaya Samphaso. Up to this point 10 kinds of contact have been stated, namely, the wholesome and unwholesome resultants having the 5 physical bases as their support. Mind contact, Manasamphasa. By this, he indicates the remaining 22 kinds of contact associated with the mundane resultant, types of consciousness. 52. With the arising of the 6-fold base, Salayatane Samudaya, the arising of this 6-fold contact should be understood to occur by way of the arising of the 6 bases beginning with the eye base. The rest by the method stated.